We're on page 193 equivalent, Sadik Zayin,
Right.
towards the bottom of the page, the last two lines, but we're going to go back just a few lines and explain the context. Between me and you, this last two lines we do now, these two lines really fit to the last section, but I didn't have time to do it last week because you'll see it's a big topic. Okay. We are holding in the middle of chapter 7 at the very bottom of page 193 in the English. It's Sadik Zayin in the Hebrew. And we're continuing on the explanation of the two focuses that are required to try to actually succeed in doing teshuvah. One focus is the act of mercy on our soul, on the part of God that's being affected by our sins. And the second thing is the bitterness, the brokenness, realizing the tremendous damage that is done and to feel broken by it and shattered by it. It's on this that we're going to now focus on one more detail. What is that detail? We said that the process of bitterness is to realize the effect of our sins, to realize what we did, how our sins impacted God, and the tremendous brokenness that we caused. So he says, with Zeu Sh'omer Azal, and this is what our sages teach us, Rishoyim b'chayeyim kriyim mesim, that the wicked people, even in their lifetime, are called dead. Why is it important? What's he trying to tell us? We have to go back and discuss a very significant concept. And there's like 4 layers to get there. So we're going to try and do the layers. Layer number one. It says that all the sufferings of this world, or the expression usually given is 70 years of suffering in this world, it's not as bad as even one moment in Gehenna, in the purgatory. In other words, even 1 minute of Gehenna is worse than, Eov says this, is worse than 70 years of suffering. And like suffering in this world, unfortunately, we know a little glimpse of what that could be now. So 1 minute is worth 70 years.
What I don't understand is suffering usually by us, it's our physical body most of the time. I mean, yes, mentally we can be suffered also, but most of it is, but in the world to come, we're going to have no body.
Very good point. What we'll discover is, and we see it unfortunately today, sometimes mental suffering is even worse. We see it today in Israel with some of the tragedy and some of the hardships. There's physical suffering is terrible. There's a famous metaphor the Rebbe gives that watching a loved one suffer is worse than suffering yourself. He talks about the Rebbe's of Chabad sending in other Hasidim to the previous Rebbe, to send it to become the rabbi in the community in the 1920s, 1930s, when they knew that's a good chance they're going to be taken and executed or imprisoned or tortured. And the Rebbe once spoke out of Farbring, and I remember listening to the recording of it. The Rebbe said, for a Rebbe to send a Chassid into such a place is much more difficult for him to go himself. Now, why? Physically, the suffering for the person is worse, yes. But when you love somebody, you care for someone, the anguish, the mental anguish, the emotional, the suffering, unfortunately, I can't explain, thank God, at this point in my life, what goes on in Gehenna and what goes on there. But the suffering, unfortunately, is unfortunately much, much worse. Much, much more than we can imagine. And then here's what it says. Now, that's the first piece to know. That 1 moment of Gehenna is worse than 70 years of this world suffering, of the worst suffering. Now, we have a story of Acher. Acher was Elisha ben Avua, who was an incredibly brilliant, great scholar, one of the great scholars of history. And because of events that happened and transpired, he not only left the world of faith and belief and trusting in God and doing mitzvahs and Torah mitzvahs, he actually went along with the Romans and helped do tremendous destruction to the Jewish people. He did sins that were tremendously tragic for the Jewish people. So much so that the Torah tells us that a voice once came down and said, everyone could repent except Acher. Acher can't come back. And there's a whole talk of the Rebbe explaining it, but that's the story. Now, comes along his student Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir was one of the great also of history. He says, Mutov Ladaini, better let him go to Gehenna and suffer whatever the sufferings are. So eventually he should come to Gan Eden, because Gan Eden is so great that all the sufferings of Gehenna is worth it. So now we said all the sufferings of 70 years is not even like 1 minute in Gehenna. Now he's saying it's worth all the Gehenna. Now, how long did Ach end up going to Gehenna? He said, Rabbi Meir said, that when the smoke starts coming from Acher's grave, that's how you know that he's going to Gehenna. Anyway, the smoke, I think it was 100 years that till I think Rabbi Yechanan got it to stop. He spent about 100 years in Gehenna. Now, 100 years in Gehenna is a suffering. Think of all those minutes times 70. It's something we can't imagine. Nevertheless, what do we say? We say it's worth it to come to all the years in Gehenna to get to Gan Eden. That's how good Gan Eden is. You want to know how good Gan Eden is? That it's worth all the suffering. Not just a regular person gets a maximum of 11 months. Acher, because of what he did, got over 100 years in Gehenna. And it was worth it to eventually, and he's in Gan Eden now. It was worth it. That's how good Gan Eden is. Nevertheless, what's the next layer? It says there's a halacha called lo yiglarosh. You're not allowed to tease somebody that doesn't have. What does that mean? A guy, God forbid, is missing his eyesight. He's blind. You can't stand next to him and say, "Oh, this picture is so beautiful. Oh, you got to see the sunset." It's called, you're teasing a guy. Rush means he's down. He doesn't have it, teasing him. A guy who's hungry or can't eat, you can't go, "Oh, this sandwich is delicious." All these things you can't do to tease somebody. And along those lines it says you're not allowed to go into a cemetery and do a mitzvah with tzitzis, with tefillin, Torah reading. You can't do it. There's a whole bunch of laws in front of a dead person. Why? Even though they're already in Gan Eden, it's teasing them. So the question, what do you mean it's teasing them? They're in Gan Eden. It's worth more than, we just described Gan Eden as the most incredible experience, that it's worth 100 years in Gehenna to get there. You're telling me that you're putting on tefillin is going to tease them? They're living in a world of pleasure and enjoyment and experience that you don't even know what it means. How could it be that our putting on tefillin, our putting on a pair of tzitzis is going to bother them? And the answer is there's two things in the world. There's pleasure and there's value. Pleasure in Gan Eden, there's nothing like it in the world. There's no pleasure we can dream of in this world better than a good cheese Danish and a hot coffee on a gorgeous day. There's nothing that can come too close to the pleasure of Gan Eden. But value, there's nothing Gan Eden has the value of a Jew doing a mitzvah in this world. The value of a mitzvah is more here, to the point that it says the angels would give up everything to come down to this world and say one time, Amen, Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevarach. They say one time, Yehei Shmei Rabba. The angels are living in the world like Gan Eden, an unbelievable time. So it says like this: true, the pleasures they have, we don't understand what that means, and it's worth all the difficulties in Gehenna and difficult times to get there. But the value of a mitzvah, they appreciate when we don't even get it, and therefore they see you. They see you like we'd give up everything. We'd run down in a second to come to a mitzvah. And therefore, when you go to the cemetery and you put on your wearing tefillin, or you're doing a mitzvah, reading a Torah, they're like, it's teasing them. They can't get this. This is something they could never get to. They can't give tzedakah. They can't do these things. So it's a tease that's unbelievable. So you want to understand here the power and the value of a mitzvah in this world, the Shema coming down to this world. Now, when we say, so what does lo yiglarosh mean? So what does it mean now? 1 second. So we say, lo hamesim yahaluka. We say it in Hallel every Rosh Chodesh. We say it in Hallel. The dead cannot praise God. Only we could do it. And we say it every day. The question is, why isn't that a tease? We're saying in davening every Rosh Chodesh, the dead can't serve God, only we can. What type of thing is that? What does that mean? This is lo yiglarosh. You're teasing them. Hey, we have tefillin, you don't. We could daven, you can't. So this explains this pasuk is not talking about dead people. It's talking about dead people. Rishayim. And that's what Alter Rebbe is telling us here. Okay. That's all the layers you have to understand to appreciate this line here. The Alter Rebbe is saying here, this is what our sages tell us. You know how bad it is to be a Rasha? When we say that the dead can't praise and serve God, we're not talking about tzaddikim. They're tzaddikim who passed away, even in their death they're called alive. Because they're alive and they're serving God and they're enjoying the pleasures and the benefits of the next world. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a Rasha who lives in this world. A guy who's a Rasha and he doesn't do mitzvahs on purpose and he doesn't do Torah. This guy, it says, they're not going to praise God. They can't do it. Why? Because Hashem made that for them to do tshuva was very difficult. Why? They have no longer control. They become like addicts. They become that they can't control themselves anymore. They cannot serve God. They can't do it anymore. And that's what we're saying. That's what he says here. They're called dead. So the question the Rebbe asks in the Sikha is, 1 second, if that's the case, why isn't this counted as loig l'rosh? Loig l'rosh means teasing someone that can't do anything about it. A guy has no eyes, a guy has no legs, a guy can't do a mitzvah. The Russia can't do tshuva, why are you teasing him? If a Russia can't do tshuva, they would say he could do tshuva, it's more difficult. He has to make a choice that he wants to change, and then Hashem will help him. But until he makes that choice, he is an addict. When you're willing to do tshuva, then you could change. But until that point, every day you're controlled by your Yetzer Hara. You're controlled by your thoughts. Your thoughts are rumbling or going away. It's like a repeat cycle. So in other words, even the Rasha could do tshuva if he decides he wants to. But until that point, he is controlled. He is dead. He is disconnected. He is an unfortunate existence. And this is what we're saying to the person. This is the end of that meditation about being bitter. When you go and do a sin, when you do something wrong, you are bringing your soul into the realm of a Rasha. You're bringing your soul into this existence. Now let's see this inside. This is what our sages tell us. The wicked people, even in a lifetime, are called dead. Why are they called dead? Because where are they getting? We say when a person does sins, what happens? You, instead of getting your channel directly from God, it goes through the terrorist organization. It goes through this evil. You're getting all your sustenance, all your life, all your things from the evil places, from evil. That means, and what happens when you get from evil? Evil's fake. It's a farce. It's a fraud. That means its whole existence, we said, is gossip. It's inflated nothing. You pop it, it's all gone. It's like the bully in the class who's more insecure than anybody else, but he acts like a bully. He is emptiness. That means you think you have life. It's dead. Even the physical life you're getting is nothing guaranteed to. There's nothing to your existence. That means you're getting your chayis and klippa. That's what happens when a person does sins and you engage in the world in a forbidden way. You're using all the chayis that comes down from God to be channeled through the pipes and the system of impurity. And therefore, now you can appreciate what it says. That the dead cannot praise Hashem. We're not teasing the dead, God forbid. We're not mocking those who passed away, God forbid. We're not mocking those who passed away, they can't do mitzvahs. We're talking about the Rishayim, you wicked guys. Next time we say hello, we're going to appreciate this. Rishayim, you guys who are dead people, if you go to the oil and you read the whole thing in the English, the minor Lashon, there's a whole section describing that people who are wicked, even when they're alive, they're called dead, and people who are righteous, even when they're dead, they're called alive. That's why there's the whole discussion. How can we go and pray at the graves of the passed away people? Tzaddikim. It's not a Jewish thing. Pray at the graves of dead. It says a person shouldn't consult the dead. We said they're not dead. The Rosh is dead. These guys are more alive than we'll ever be. They're more alive than their vibrancy, their vitality, their life of living. That's not called dead. Going to the grave of a Rosh, a purity, to Bilam, that's death. That's what Al Kavana al Shoyin Shebachim Kuriyim Mesim Shemavalvulim Oisav Machshava Zaris. Hashem does not allow them to function. They have no ability to function because their Machshava Zaris, their thoughts are completely rumbled and rambled like an addict. But Edom Berisham, as long as they stay in the Risham, that means, the Rebbe explains, until they're willing to do tshuva. As soon as the Rosh says, I want to change, now we can help you. But until that moment, but Edom Berisham, as long as you're standing in your place of wickedness, there your taka are dead. The Einam Chafetzim b'tshuva Kaneda, they're in a situation that they don't want to do tshuva. But if they want to do tshuva, that's different. Okay. This was the end of the last piece about the meditation of bitterness and brokenheartedness. That's the second stage. We need mercy on our soul and brokenheartedness and bitterness to realize the damage that we're doing by sins, that we're tapping into the most flawed fraud of energy. Okay. Now, the Alter Rebbe is going to address another thing. How about a person that says, listen, you mentioned that there are certain sins that are called Christos or Mrs. Basin. Now, if I do this sin, a person, God forbid, gets cursed. He dies at 50, he dies at 60. What's about a guy who says, I never did those sins. I know that those sins are really bad, and I'm careful not to do them. I do small sins. I talk Lashon Hara. I skip mincha. I don't always bench after a meal, but I look where I shouldn't. But I don't do the big sins. So why should I feel so bad? I never really tapped into that evil in the same way. I never got disconnected from God. So the Alter Rebbe now to go into that department. Someone who feels this and says, how could I relate to tshuva? Like we're saying relationships, a lot of times a man will say something to his wife or vice versa, which is bothersome. It's not nice what you said. You say, look at your wife, you said you'll be here on time. Okay, then you say a line that's really, okay, I never said those lines. I never do the big trouble. I always just, little offenses. Little offenses matter to us, we'll see. Both in raising a child, both in talking to our spouse, both in friendships. All these little things matter. And even someone who never transgressed a serious sin, a massive sin, like Karis, like a son that should get Karis, or something that should get Misudei Shemayim, that's dying God forbid at 50 or 60. And he gives examples. Shehu Zal like wasting seed, which is, by the way, we now the more we understand, the more we see why that's always such a primary sin. One of the primary aspects of sin is taking a resource that God gave us. We gave the example of a guy going, the king gives somebody money and go buy some food, and it comes and he buys a stick and he beats the king with it. Because the king says, "You took my money to buy something to hit me with. I gave you money to buy food." That's what the Ramak says as an example what it means to disrespect God. Zal means Hashem gave us one tool in this world that has the ability to create a life. And when someone disrespects it, this Hashem says is the worst. This is considered the worst. This is my most precious commodity in the world, is the ability to create life. And when you disrespect it, that's considered one of the primary sins in Kabbalah. Hi, Gavna. He never did massive sins. He never went and ate pork. He never went and murdered somebody. He never went and worshipped idols. I never did that. I never had enough fear. All I did was, come on, I had some. I didn't make a bracha on the cookie. He didn't make. Says the Alter Rebbe, Afal Pikein. Nevertheless, because these things will affect and damage the soul, the nefesh alikis and your godly soul, commercial pegimas upsikas chavalim dakim kanal. Like the example he gave before, he says that the Yaakov Chev Nachalasa, our connection to God, is like a rope, like a heavy rope made of 613 strands. If there are certain strands that if you cut them, it blows like a fuse and the entire rope gets cut. There are certain ones, you touch this one, the whole rope gets cut. That's a massive, massive effector. But there are some stuff, it doesn't affect the whole thing. Okay, so a little bracha here, a little benching here, a little lashon hara here, a little. And what happens is, he said, over time, the rope's going to snap. He said, so maybe what's going to happen is maybe you didn't do something to snap it in 1 second, but over time, the rope, that connection, that bond will get withered. And he's going to go and explain it in detail now. By doing many, many different sins, pegam chet echad. Oops, I skipped here. Pegam k'moy belav echad sheyesh b'kodesh hamisa. By doing many different sins, it has the same effect on your relationship with Hashem as if you would have done one massive sin. So many small sins. It's like, you could walk by and you could smack someone in the face and they'll blow a fuse. Or you could walk by somebody and clip your ear once, a second time, a third time, a fourth time. By a certain time, they're going to jump up and hit you. Why? I was clipping. Yeah. One clip is fine. 30, 40, 50, 60 times I can't handle. There's sometimes that little things add up. And the same thing, by the way, is true with trauma, with people going through difficult times. Some people, at one event can happen and really shatter themselves and go into a very serious sadness and brokenheartedness. And sometimes it can be a sequence of many small things. They got a paper cut and they missed a bus and this. And at the end of like an hour or two, it's like they fall apart. What happened? It's nothing. The sequence of things add up. And the same thing is with words. How you speak to somebody, little pieces add up. We find a very fascinating thing. We had it in Hayem Yem a few days ago, I believe, or in the Tanya a few days ago. We had in Tanya, I think, where it says if a person has a choice to give tzedakah one time, let's say $100, or give $100, $101 bills. Better do $101 bills. It's the same amount of tzedakah, but the actions have a tremendous effect. Each time you do it has an effect. Same thing is with every single sin or mitzvah that we do. There's a very fascinating law, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, about Shabbos. If a person on Shabbos has to desecrate Shabbos to feed someone who's starving, someone is starving and they need food. I'm not talking about the starving where it's seconds matter, but talking about you have to get them food to eat. So you have two choices. One is run to the store and buy non-kosher meat because there's no kosher meat available, or you can go to your backyard and shecht an animal and have an hour from that you can have kosher meat. Same time frame. What's better to do? You can't shecht on Shabbos, and you can't eat non-kosher meat. What should you do? Sure. It says better shecht. Why? When it comes to non-kosher food, every kazayis is a sin. Every time you eat a kazayis, an olive size or a piece of a certain amount, it's about an ounce. Every time you do that, it's a sin. Shechting, it's one time, it's one sin, that's it. Meaning better, even though on Shabbos, you're allowed to desecrate Shabbos to save a life, but when you could avoid it, for an example, we had cases recently, I was involved with some case where somebody was needing a certain medical emergency, And they said, if you can get an Uber driver to take you is better make a phone call to the Uber or do an app and get an Uber driver. If not, drive yourself. But better get an Uber driver because then they're stopping and they're going, he's doing it. You did one thing, you got into the car, you got out of the car, you called the Uber. But there's no constant, it's in general, when someone's having a baby or someone things, better to find a way to minimize the amounts of transgressions. So we say on Shabbos, better shech the animal, it's one transgression, whereas eating, every time you take another bite, it's another sin. Another bite, another sin. There's a other way around and positive. It says there's an expression that says in the Talmud. It says Mila bechad shtika betrei. It says a word spoken is worth one selah, silence is worth two. Today.
Three is not three.
Three is in Russian. Adin dva three. But in the Aramaic it's two. Plus is three. Plus. Yeah, in Russian today is three. So today is two. It says Mila bechad. Yeah, and there's two. Similar to Russian. Mila bechad shtika betrei. A spoken word is worth one selah, two silence is worth two selah. They say what's more valuable? Seemingly silence. No, the spoken word. Because silence is once. You silence, it's one long silence. Words, you can speak 100 words, and that's 100 silence. So meaning you have to look at the volume of what you're doing, not just the action, but how many times. That's a concept of the Talmud. So he says here like this: by doing something many, many times, it could become to a point that it reaches the same effect as one massive sin. Kamoishe himshul hanavi. The Navi there is going to talk about different types of clouds and different types of sins. There's a cloud called Ka'av. That's a very thick, heavy cloud. And there's a cloud called Anan, which is a very light, wispy cloud. And he's going to say there are certain sins that are like heavy clouds and certain sins that are wispy clouds. Like the Navi gives a metaphor. Clouds, the sins that a person does, like clouds that block the light of the sun. Light of the sun is a metaphor for Hashem. We are here, as we'll see in the moment Al Rebbe mentioned, we are the people living on earth. That's us, our godly souls, and the presence of God. And between us, what could come between us? One thing, clouds. What comes between the earth and the sun? Just clouds. Nothing really else gets in the way. So the Navi says that sins are like the clouds. Like we find that Hashem says when he wants to clear it, he talks about clearing the sins, meaning the clouds. So you see, clouds are a metaphor for sin. So the word of Pesha'acha refers to heavy, heavy clouds, heavy sins. Hemaveres chamures, those are heavy sins. Hamavdilim, that make a separation and a block. Ben pnimius hashbas shem havaya barachu lenefesh alikis, that creates a block between the inner flow. The inner flow is that's coming from Heitatah, Hashem's name, the flow of God's energy to our godly soul. Kahavdalas an of v'choshoch, like a thick, heavy, dark cloud. Hamavla ben hashemesh l'aretz v'ladarim aleha, that separates between the sun and the earth and the people living upon it. Now, the Rebbe explains, why did the Alter Rebbe use two expressions there? L'aretz, to the land, v'ladarim aleha. We know that's from Hameir l'aretz, v'ladarim aleha. That he who shines light, we say it every day in the blessings of Shema, he who shines light on the earth and on the people that dwell upon it. So the Rebbe explains how Aretz refers to the presence of God, that we said when a person does a sin, he affects two things. You affect your soul, your own neshama lekis, nefesh lekis, and you could affect also the godly presence, which is the source where all energy comes from in this world, which is the Heitatah. So he says Haaretz refers that the sun blocks, the clouds will block the sun from the presence of God, meaning disconnect even in godliness itself, as is found in this world. But Adar Malay refers to the godly souls. The godly souls dwell upon this land, and those also are affected by the clouds. That's why I mentioned both expressions, Haaretz and Adar Malay, Al Derech Mashal. So you have one thing is called a heavy, thick clouds, and then you have something called Anan Chatasecha. It says somewhere else, the clouds that are sins are light clouds, Anans, light, wispy clouds. Heina Vedes Kalis, those are the simple sins, or I should say light sins. Why are they called light? Adam Dosh Be'ikvav. They are the ones that people think are not a big deal. Dosh Be'ikvav means there are certain things that you never step on the floor. And certain things you don't count, but it's a little nothing, I'll step on it. Certain people won't step on like a large clump, but little things that you would step on, mean they're insignificant. A lot of people, unfortunately, could think they're just talking during davening or saying a word of Lashon Hara or listening to Lashon Hara or pushing off doing a mitzvah. Big deal. It's like these are not, come on, I'm an honest person. I pay my taxes. I don't eat pork. Those are the small things that people feel don't matter. But truth to be told, hamavdilin kahavdolas onon kal v'kol mashal. they could eventually cover like heavier clouds. Meaning right now there are thin clouds, but the thin clouds, as we'll see, can add up. What happens is when you have one thin cloud, but still the sun comes through. Another thin cloud, okay. As you add layers of thin clouds, like to me the best example is the clouds that come down to this earth a lot of times are called fog. Fog is very thin. The proof is, if I'm standing here and you're standing there outside in the fog, I can see you perfectly. What happens if you do a half a mile? I can't see a thing. Why not? There's nothing there. I was standing 10 feet from you, and there's nothing blocking us. Sometimes you can go into a cloud in the sky where you can't even see the wings of the airplane. It's a cloud that's complete. So you have clouds that are thick, and you have clouds that are thin. A thin cloud seemingly doesn't block anything. But when you add up much cloud, you see it's a complete block. You can't see anything. The building that was standing there 10 minutes ago, now with the fog coming through, you cannot see it, even though I can see everything within my backyard. So he says like this. For an example in this metaphor, if a person would go to his window where the sun is shining in nicely, a beautiful sunny day, he would do and you start hanging up very thin, like sheets or something, which don't block the sun that much. There's a very small difference. A lot of times you have these very thin curtains that don't do much. But you start adding not 1, 2, 3, but 40, 50, 60, 70. You put all these curtains, it's like a wall. You can't see squat. You can't see anything through it. He says, what happens? They will make the same darkness. No difference than putting a heavy blanket to block it or a heavy, light blocking drape, and sometimes even more. Because as we know from our own little Wisconsin weather, sometimes layer dressing works better than one heavy coat. There's a certain strongness that when you have many layers, the way it blocks the way, I don't know how light works, but it can block even heavier than one thick blanket. In other words, says the Rebbe is telling us that doing sins, even though they're small sins, don't fool yourself to say, I'm not going to feel so bad about it. Maybe the guy who eats pork, he's a sinner. The guy who goes and has an affair, he's a sinner. Me, I do small stuff. The small stuff adds up and adds up and adds up and adds up. And we always tell people, give another penny to tzedakah, give another penny. It says, it says, Mazarefes l'cheshbon gadol. We say when you give tzedakah, every penny adds up to a big cheshbon, not just pennies, also lashon hara. That's first of all. He says, the same thing is back in the story itself that we're talking about. The kol avenes she'adam. Sorry, and anything that a person does and steps on with his feet, it becomes truth to be told, they're not to be ignored. They add up to a very big cheshbon. Now we're going to go into. I'll stop here. I'm just going to go a little bit more and explain this. Then we'll stop here and finish next week this chapter. He says now he's going to go to another thing, which is very significant. There are many sins that are officially very light sins, like one of the strongest examples he's going to give. If a poor man comes in need, the guy's hungry, he needs something to eat, and you're not interested in helping him. You pretend you don't see it. Halamas ayin. I pretend I don't see him. I didn't hear the knock on the door. I didn't see the guy. That is considered one of the primary sins. Whatever reason the Gemara says, it's like idol worship. It's like having a forbidden relationship and the murder. It's all the levels of sin. Same thing we say about someone who gets angry, someone who there's many small sins that have a tremendous impact, and we'll talk about why in a minute and what that is exactly. But the bottom line is, besides the fact that many sins add up to a big cheshbon, there are certain sins that you think are nothing because they don't have a mitzvah. If you're taken to court and they bring you in with two witnesses, I could testify that Yankel saw the poor man. I saw what he did. He quickly closed his book and walked out of the room right when the poor man was coming in. The court will tell him, "You are go to tshuva." We don't do anything then. Why? Because it's not something the court punishes you. But the effect of that sin in heaven is as bad as murder. Massive. And we're going to go into now that certain sins have the impact, just like idol worship or murder, even though they seem to be small like us. That's going to be lashon hara. That's going to be hiding for someone who needs tzedakah, etc. So we'll go there. The bottom line is, the Alter Rebbe today's class is telling us that don't think just because I never did any major sins that I can't come brokenhearted. Because a lot of times a person will feel, I'm on a diet, and I took a little bit here, a little bit here. I took, you take the brownie one piece at a time. One little piece doesn't count as eating. I don't need cake, but to break off from someone else's plate, a small piece, that adds up. So the Alter Rebbe is going to tell us, I know you never went and did the big sin, but you should still be able to come to a place of being brokenhearted and tragically pained by the reality of what you've done to your soul and done to its relationship with Hashem, because little things add up.